And for more analysis, we go to Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director for EWTN News. Matthew, great to be with you as always. Explain to us, again, exactly what Pope Francis means by synodality. I mean, there seems to be a lot of confusion over this.
Yeah, one of the challenges that Pope Francis has had, as well as the leaders of the Synod, the Synod on synodality, is actually helping people understand exactly what we mean by synodality. To add a synod on that topic, in some ways, has struck many people as so self-referential that it makes it even more difficult to explain what it is. Pope Francis has used very straightforward terms in his aspirations for synodality, as we've heard from Cardinal Grech in the reporting from Rome today. It is listening, it is accompaniment. The word itself, synod, is derived from the Greek for journeying together. In other words, the church is moving together. But that also entails listening, accompaniment. It pulls together some of the themes from Pope Francis, especially the idea of mercy, again, of that listening to those who are spread out in the peripheries. It's a challenge, however, because it at times seems so vague, especially when we hear, as we did even today and yesterday, references to the place of the Holy Spirit, and that we need to discern and listen to the Spirit. So it's not surprising that they're still struggling a bit to define what exactly synodality is, but clearly we have a blueprint, at least, for going forward in these discussions.
Yeah, on to the document itself now, Matthew. What are the biggest takeaways for you?
Yeah, well, as we were hearing, the hot-button issues are referenced here, but they're couched within a series of discernment questions. In other words, it is not simply proposed, as we see in other types of Instrumentum labora leading into different types of other synods. These aren't recommendations or proposals. These are questions that we're supposed to discern. The other major takeaway, I think, as was referenced by Ben Crockett in his reporting, is the strong focus in this Instrumentum on authority in the Church. And that itself is looked at from the perspective of transparency, of listening to the people of God, making sure that everyone is heard. It raises questions as to exactly who we're supposed to listen to when a suggestion is made, for example, as a discernment question, that should we listen to other ecclesial communities, such as the Anglicans, for example, or the Lutherans, as to how they have power structures within their own communities. But those are questions that we're going to have to address clearly because they're on this list for discernment. And I think that's one of the reasons why there has been a certain surprise that they made their appearance here. But obviously this is something that the Holy Father wants discussed.
Yeah, and what are the most important developments to watch for next when it comes to the Synod?
Yeah, I think there are three. The first is that, as Pope Francis himself has reiterated, as we hear from the organizers of the Synod, including especially Cardinal Mario Grech, this is not a parliament. This is not intended to be like an up-and-down democracy vote on what the Church believes. That's something I think we'll see stressed again in the coming months. The other big question is who exactly is going to be participating in the Synod. It was announced yesterday that we still don't have the lists. Pope Francis is going to have quite a bit of say in who's actually representing the people of God at the Synod. And then the other final one, which we won't really know until the end of the Synod in October, is what are the marching orders? What is supposed to happen within the Church and for the Church at the end of this Synod leading up to the October 2024 Synod. So that's one of the major questions that has yet to be answered.
Almost out of time, Matthew, but before we wrap up, I want to get to this. The leaders of the Synod stress that this is not a magisterial document nor a sociological study. That said, why is this so important?
Well, it's significant for them to note that. Again, we go back to what Francis has said, that this is not a parliament. So this document itself, this Instrumentum, is not intended to have magisterial weight. In other words, this isn't a theological document as much as it is a guidebook or a blueprint for these discussions. In other words, the fear that somehow this is all going to lead to changes in church teaching is something I think they need, and they're going to some lengths to try to allay. Also, this isn't a sociological study. This is a reflection and discernment on the life of the church and the spirit in the church. So we have to be careful about pulling in the social sciences as we examine the church to the potential destruction of our own self-understanding of the church. And we need to be very careful in how we analyze and how we move forward in avoiding those social sciences, which we have seen play such a significant and deleterious role in the German synodal path that has just been concluded.
Well, Dr. Bunson, thank you so much, as always, for coming on and breaking this down for us. We really appreciate it.
Good to be with you.